it was going on, the national securities, they didn't enter inside the church, and when the lady who was a member of the a moral leverage because the service is going on, so they did not enter the church. What other leverage was there in the school?
Power leverage. Power leverage.
Who had that?
Officers, security officers.
So there was a military or police leverage because the military had the leverage to take them into custody for 2 days without anything to question. Yeah? Who has the leverage?
The lady.
Senate?
Security.
Police officers.
Police officers?
The pastor. Pastor.
The pastor. Okay. How does the leverage impact the situation?
The lady saved the situation. His leverage gave impact in saving the situation from a conflictual situation.
Okay. What else?
The military leverage impacted the peaceful prayer.
The prayer still continued.
Yeah.
The events kept going on.
But there were some interruptions.
Yeah. And interruptions were outside the church. Okay. What else?
There was a peaceful resolution of sorts than violence.
Maybe they would have detained the 2 women organizers, but now they are safe. The event happened peacefully and the women were not threatened because of their identity, and the Senate chose to show up and protect them. Okay. So what might you do if you go into negotiation and you want leverage and you do not have it?
Please repeat it again.
Okay. So what might you do if you do not have leverage and you need to negotiate?
We have to request. We have to request to the officer.
About officer who's facilitating the negotiation? Which officer?
The head of the officer. There might be the one leader in the officer. So
Okay.
we try
My
to
question
convince-
is, I'm repeating. What might you do if you do not have leverage but you need to negotiate? Now think about yourself in a situation of negotiation.
First, we will extend our hand and try to build a relationship, and then try to talk to them and mediate the situation happening, and try to solve without leverage.
With whom will you build the relationship?
With the one who needs to be negotiate with us.
You mean the other party?
Yes.
Okay.
Will it be possible to try to find and leverage?
You find the leverage externally. Okay. What
From
else?
this story, the 2 women find political leverage. Similarly, we can find someone.
Either you find leverage externally or you delay the negotiation process to find the leverage. So either of the 2 situations. Okay. What leverage might you have when you are negotiating in your community? Now imagine there is a negotiation happening based on the current conflict you are experiencing, and what leverage do you have in that particular negotiation?
Indiscipline leverage.
Cultural.
Culture and similarity leverage.
Now so if that's okay for me to ask, you can say I am wrong or you can choose not to answer. But if any negotiation happens between Metis and Kutis, as Metis, what leverage do you have in a situation of negotiation?
The leverage we have is that we have never shed the first blood.
Sorry?
We have never shed the first blood. This one.
No, we've never shed.
Excuse me, ma'am. If it permits, then
Okay.
it's better we stop it.
So they are saying, since we are discussing something sensitive, do you mind?
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Here's the one. Then the trees grows here. The root of the trees goes in different direction.
boy languages, you know.
Call out again, Manipur.
Thank you very much.
To take further training in this field of work. And now, I'm quite sure all of you must have enjoyed how you experienced the learning process over the last 3 or 4 days. Now, at the end of this last session of the 4th day, we are presenting you a short talk by one of our very respected leader, whose name is Thangjam Brojen. He is going to give you a motivational talk based on his experience. Mr. Thangjam Brojen is a retired IPS officer, and he retired as Chief Security Advisor to the UN Iraq mission, Iraq peacekeeping mission. So he brings a huge experience from around the world, particularly in the specific case of Iraq, how the United Nations undertook the mission to ensure that peace gets established there in their country, which was rocked by violent conflict. He has not many things to share, but it is just 30 minutes glimpse into his huge experience, and we hope that you'll be inspired by his experience and you will also take more interest in this field of work. So and now let me request Tao Brojen to come over to the stage and take his 30 minutes. Thank you. thank you, Devin, but I must do some expectation management. You know. He was talking about huge experience, so this experience may not be as huge as Mr. Devin really made it up. But I think I request all of us to sit together so that I think we can do this interaction a little bit more informally. Thank you. Now I think it's day 4 of the workshop, isn't it? Now I'm looking at eyes and the faces of all the participants here. And I don't see any sign of fatigue or tiredness. So what's going on? So I think the credit must go to the facilitators. I think led by Somia, Manat, Juanita, and of course Alexa. So all 4 of them. I think a round of applause for the 4 of them. By the way, it's not easy, you know, to remain motivated 4 days of an exercise or a workshop like this, and especially in an environment in which we operate in. But so therefore, when I see you guys, all of you, very young students, you know, I am the one getting motivated, not the other way around. Now, I have to say this. Having said this, let's get into a little bit of Mr. Devin, when he invited me, say it's a motivational talk. But I think we'll have to rephrase this a little. The motivation is not going to come from us, from our illness, under the circumstances. Motivation is actually coming from the vibrant and robust participation from our young friends. So we are getting encouraged by your enthusiasm and by your lively presence here. Now, let me ask a few questions, I think, just to set the ball rolling. We are talking about peace building and conflict transformation, isn't it? Is it possible to build peace? Yes or no? Yes. So I think, David, your purpose is already served. If the moment you say, the moment we say peace building is possible, then I think the purpose, the mission of this workshop is already achieved. Isn't it? Is it possible for conflict? I mean, how do you see conflict? Do you see this as a very static thing, or is it something very dynamic? Does it keep on changing? Is it possible to transform conflict? Yes or no? See? A third question. I'm just doing offhand, nothing prepared, so I'm just, whatever that comes to my mind. Was there any point in human history when there was absolute peace? No conflict, no wars in any parts of the world? See? So now what do we do? If you say there is always a war in some part of the world, there is always some conflict in some corner of the world, afflicting some community somewhere, and yet we are talking and we agree here that peace is possible, conflict transformation is possible. So what do we do then? If there is war all the time, are we going to pull our legs, stretch our legs, and keep on crying and say it's not possible? The peace building is not possible? Right? If the wars are going on. So the moment we say peace building is possible, conflict transformation is possible, and then we have people all coming from all over the world assembled here, I think part of our purpose is already served, and that is where the motivation is. And this is where the optimism is. So therefore, when we have a workshop like this, and we have such positive response on the possibility of transforming conflict and of realizing peace, then that is where the reflection of our optimism, that it is indeed possible to bring about peace under any conflict circumstances. So I think, as far as the workshop is concerned, I would imagine, let's forget the technicalities. Okay. What is being taught, what theories have been discussed, what exercises have been done, let's forget. But in purely brass sticks, the essence of the conversation about the possibility of bringing peace and about transforming the conflict that we see, the moment we realize that that is possible, I think our motive, our objectives, I'm repeating, but the objectives are already achieved. So I think we're happy with this. Now a little bit of this, Devin spoke about my personal experiences. For the last 17 years of my career, I spent in many parts of the conflict-afflicted world. I started my career in a country called Yugoslavia, in a place called Kosovo. Then I transformed myself, I visited Bosnia and Herzegovina. From there I went to a place called Sudan. You heard, I think they're all in the news, by the way. Then in 2011, when, as part of the resolution, when a new country called South Sudan was created, I was transferred to South Sudan. I saw the country being born, the new state being inaugurated. I saw that I was an intimate part of that process. Once I completed my tenure in South Sudan, I moved to a place called Afghanistan. Then from Afghanistan, the UN was kind enough to push me to New York, in the UN headquarters. And sitting in New York, I was looking at all the conflict zones again. Of course, logistically supporting UN missions in these areas, like Mali, for instance, Central African Republic. Then from there, I came to another headquarters of conflict called Iraq. Okay? So I think throughout my career of 17, 18 long years in the UN, I was always serving in what could be called the crucibles of conflict. Now, when you roam around all these places and see conflict, what do you see? What could you see actually? You see nothing except death. Death, destruction, displacement, nothing else. We haven't seen anything, flowers being planted or fruits being planted. We have never seen that kind of stuff. We always talk, we always hear about death, destruction, and displacement. Does it serve any purpose? Does it serve any purpose to be involved in conflict? We say this conflict is endemic, right? And yet, it doesn't serve any purpose. And in the 17 or 18 years that I've always seen tragedies, human tragedies. Now, maybe I can share a small little story. When I reached South Sudan in 2011, the UN mission was being set up. Now, of course, the infrastructure was very poor. Living conditions were poor. We needed assistance of helpers, domestic helpers, to take care of our houses, our accommodations rather, small accommodations. So one fine day I requested for a helper, just as other staff members do it. So, and then here a young girl arrived. I did a small little cursory little interview. And to me, she was perfect as far as the work that I needed was concerned. And then over a period of time, over the months, then I realized that this girl was a little different from the other girls that we see, the other ladies that we saw in the compound. Now, she started leaving behind small notes, like your detergent is running short, your clothes are being sent to dry, all the stuff. Now, first she started writing to me in French. Then I said, listen, I'm not a francophone, so therefore you'll have to do that in English. So she immediately shifted to English perfectly. And I saw the handwriting that caught me first. When I see here beautiful handwriting here, for instance. Those who have undergone cursive writing training as a child, who have gone to kindergarten and you write cursive writing, right? You can immediately make out that this young girl had gone to a school, have undergone learning of cursive writing. And so then I got curious. And the way she presented herself, her communication skills, the way she forms the sentences, it's an educated person. So I got curious. So I asked her one day when I met her, I said, hey, listen, why are you not telling anything about yourself a little? From your features, you look Tutsi. If you serve long enough in Africa, you can immediately make out, the physical features. The Tutsis will have sharper features, longer limbs, leaner bodies and tall. So I said, you don't look South Sudanese to me. And she said, I'm Ugandan. I said, I don't think you're Ugandan. Your features are not Ugandan at all. But she never disclosed any facts to me. So anyway, I gave her. I I didn't really pursue. But days into weeks, weeks into months. So I inquired from those who manage this company. I said, listen, this girl's come across as a very, very polished, very well-groomed, very well-educated girl. So any idea about her background? And that's when I came to learn about her. And she was from a very, very wealthy, well-doing family. The father was a physician, the mother was a physician in Rwanda. So when the Rwanda crisis took place, the genocide took place, both her parents were killed by the Hutus. And then she became a refugee with her younger brother. And she was shifted to Uganda, grew up literally in a refugee camp, looking after her younger brother. Now look at the tragedy of people that befalls on people through conflicts like this. But I think it's not about the fate that has befallen on her. It was more about how she was managing herself and how she was presenting herself. Despite all the prompting that people did, she will never disclose who she was. She never saw any sign of hostility to any of the Hutu population that actually massacred their own community and their own family. It was about, the moral of the story was about the dignity and the resilience, the way she has maintained her dignity and her resilience in the face of such insurmountable crisis. And these are the flip side, the good side, the lessons that you learn, the strength of human society, the strength of human beings as a community to be able to face tragedy and to overcome it and then present herself with all the dignity of a very fine, decent human being. Today when we are talking about crisis here, I think most of the time we're also looking for a reflection or a presentation of a sense of human dignity like this. It doesn't make any sense for you to pull your hair, keep on keeping, shouting and blaming others. Now the moment you do this, when you are not, displaying all these traits of anger and negativity, then it is also possible for peace to come. Why did the peace process in Uganda proven so successful? It's precisely because of this, that every Ugandan reflected the quality that I was just mentioning, and this girl is called Treasure. The qualities that Treasure reflected was reflected by all the citizens and population of Uganda, of the Rwandan Tutsis. And which is why I think subsequently later, and today as we speak, Rwanda is a leading country in Africa, despite the genocide that they have faced. So today when we're talking about conflict transformation, there is a great lesson that we can learn from the Rwandan experience. I think when you have your time, free time, go through it, read, and you will understand what I'm trying to say. And today, as we go through all this crisis, it's very, very important that we try to draw and learn lessons from other experiences. Because when you draw your lessons from other experiences, then you realize what is the way forward, what is the path ahead. Now that's the story, an anecdotal story that I thought was probably relevant for all of us. Now, of course, I will not get into the technicalities or conceptual issues regarding peace building or conflict transformation. Maybe I'm not competent even to do that. I'm not necessarily an academic. I'm not necessarily a teacher. The little bit that I could share are from our lived experiences, from when you interact and when you serve these countries. But irrespective of theories that you choose or the concepts you apply, peace building at the end of the day is all about bringing or building harmony. Is about breaking down walls between individuals. It's about building walls between communities, isn't it? It's about, Tagore used a very beautiful word, expression. I think if you see that very famous poem where the world is without fear, right? And there is one beautiful sentence, word for it, where the world is not divided by narrow domestic walls. And when you read, you'll find. So peace building is about breaking down these narrow domestic walls that we create around us. So therefore, I think the first and foremost thing, and this is straight from my heart, when we are trying to groom ourselves as peace builders or as workers of peace, the one thing that we must do is our ability to self-introspect. Now, self-introspection is absolutely necessary. And when you self-introspect, you must remove your great ideas, your fantastic ideas about your community or yourself. And you must do this with sincerity and with a certain amount of humility. And this is not me saying. There is a psychologist called Sigmund Freud. Have you heard the name of Freud? Now, of course, conflict is analyzed from various perspectives. But Freud also uses one way of analyzing conflict within different communities. And Freud uses a term, I think when you find the time you can Google and you can read. It's called narcissism of minor differences. This is about communities that really resemble one another. And yet, you get into conflict. Of course, when we started this function, you know, some facilitators spoke about, you know, receding resources. Conflict is about how resource sharing, etc., right? Those are all true. But there is one aspect, one dimension of conflict as well. And that psychological dimension is captured in Freud's concept of narcissism of minor differences. Okay? That you and I, between you and I, when we are trying to reassert our identities, and when we look very, very similar, right? You have a tendency to focus or emphasize on that minor differences so that you can say that I'm different from you. For example, if you're talking about communities here, for example, between Cookies and Makepeace, of course. So it's a very, very similar communities. I mean, you look at geography, you look at historical experiences, you look at even some of the cultural practices, you look at the amount of intermarriages. I mean, it's all the same. And I don't think Makepeace of today's generation are holding these grand ideas of, you know, ritual superiority or cultural superiority, nothing of the sort. And yet when people are getting equal and equal and equal, there is a tendency to make ourselves look different, the more different. And that is what Freud was trying to explain by using this concept of narcissism of minor differences. And I'm trying to take a little bit of time on this because this is an important concept. Because in trying to resolve a conflict, when you do self-introspection, it is also important that you're mindful of this possibility of going through narcissism. Okay? And Freud says, and I'm trying to quote him directly, I don't know if it is a verbatim reproduction, because the less you love, the more likely you are likely to love your target. Because when you are trying to introspect, and if you say, okay, I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I'm more civilized, I'm more cultured, I'm richer, I'm more educated, the moment you do this, you'll not be able to love or appreciate or value the other. Okay? So the less you love yourself, the more you're likely to appreciate your other, maybe in this case, the enemy, for instance. So I think when you do this self-introspection, don't forget Freud's prescription of, you know, loving yourself a little less, and in the process of trying to love your enemy or your other a little bit more. Okay, this is very, very true. The second aspect that I can emphasize, I mean, there must be many, but these are, I thought, are important. The second is the kind of images that you create for your enemy. Most of the conflict, a win-win situation, as we say, can only be achieved when you are able to dismantle the negative images that you create about your enemy. When you have an enemy, you have a tendency to demonize them. You develop stereotypical ideas about your adversary. Isn't it? We do that all the time. You know, you are like this, you are like this, you look like that, you look ugly, all sorts of things. You look at the social media conversations, especially among youngsters. There is a great tendency to demonize the other. The constant use of terms like narco-terrorists, specifically given to communities, which is not true. And yet you keep on harping on it. Illegal immigrants, to whole communities. You know, if you keep on building the image of your adversary on these patterns, then you'll never be able to break down the stereotypical and demonized, images of your adversaries, of your enemies. The moment you do this, you can never build a relationship, based on compassion. Okay. It's very, very important as a peace builder, as a worker of peace, you must always try to break down the stereotypical images of your enemy, or the adversary, or another. Okay. This is the second aspect that I would like to emphasize. I think if you want a reference, I think the psychologist called Mr. Herbert, something second name I've forgotten, it's the 2004 thesis that he had developed very, very extensively and applied across the board in all peacekeeping exercises and peace building exercises. The third aspect that I'd like to emphasize, and for you to, as you lead, is leadership. In any conflict situation, in the process of peace building, or in conflict transformation, the role of leadership is very, very important. And when I say leader, I'm not talking about the political elected leader, blah, blah, blah. The moment you become a peacemaker yourself, I think you yourself become a leader in your own right. Like, for example, when I'm talking, I'm the leader here, right? So leadership is very important. But what kind of a leadership are we talking about? A leadership that can actually rise up beyond and above the differences. Ability to see injustices if there are any. The ability to see, institutional disparities if there are any. And then address or engage with people with ideas of compassion. If you look at, remember the definition of peace by Spinoza, right? Peace is not an absence of war. And it says this is a virtue, right? It is a mindset. It is a disposition of benevolence, confidence, and justice. Now this is the universally and internationally accepted definition of peace. So you have this component. Now you must have a leader or a leadership that focuses on the second part. I mean, if you look at John Galton, I think in the way he defines peace, you have a negative peace, that is absence of war, or in a positive peace, when you develop this idea of compassion, right? Of benevolence, of justice. The leader should be able to focus on this second part as well, right? So every one of you in your own right as leaders must not forget these ideas of compassion, to be able to rise up, this narrow differences, or this tendency to demonize adversaries. Very, very, very important. And lastly, as I lead, in any conflict resolution, I'm sure you must be applying some principles or some models. The one model that we often use in peacekeeping settings is called the Kutsa model, CUDSA. Have you come across? CUDSA, Kutsa. It says the first C stands for confront. Confront. The second letter U stands for understanding. Okay? Then the third letter D stands for define. Then the S stands for search. And the A stands for agree. So whenever you're going through a peace process, a peace building process, or in the process of transforming or resolving a conflict, this model is probably very, very helpful. But this is also a model that is often, taught in the MIT. When I had undergone my training in this MIT management training, so these instructors have taught this model. Very, very helpful. But I'm not going to go and explain the model, by the way. I'm just trying to pick up one concept here of this process, the third process, the first two letters of understanding, confronting, and understanding. Now, in this confronting and understanding, there is one virtue that is absolutely essential, and that is called courage. If you don't have the courage, you cannot be a peace builder. Today, for example, I'm already happy that you guys have come forward. For example, for the four facilitators, a huge amount of travel coming to, I'm sorry to say this, but a God-forsaken world, completely forgotten. But for the youngsters in front of me, why? Because peace building ideas or concepts or words of peace building and conflict transformation is not a very sexy concept as we speak, is it? It's not very popular, right? We're in the middle of a conflict. So we don't want to talk about peace, we don't want to talk about conflict transformation. So the one who speaks about peace or conflict transformation is not a heroic deed, it's not glamorous. And yet despite this, you decide to choose and come forward and be part of this process. It's already very, very excellent. So therefore that is an incorporation of this virtue of courage. And there is something called a concept called courageous conversation. When you are addressing any issue, there is, and when we talk about courage, it's not only purely about physical courage. Okay, we have a tendency, when we talk about courage, purely physical courage, running in against gunfire, and then, not being scared when you hear bomb blast. Nothing of the sort. Courage, the most serious courage is the moral courage. To be able to stand up and stand your ground on what you think is right. And that is very, very crucial when you do this process of confronting and understanding a situation. When you apply the good somewhat. So I'm picking up these one virtue that I want to imbibe in you, that I want you to remember, that courage is a virtue. And it's a necessary virtue if all of us have to follow the path of peace. So what have I said? So the first and foremost, looking at ourselves individually, right? And ability to introspect. That also requires a certain amount of sincerity and courage. Right? Ability to look inwards, self-introspect. The second part about relationship, right? Of individual or community relationship. When you look at the other, you don't look at the other by demonizing them based on a stereotypical image that you build. Right? Try to break them down. It's not necessary. Right? And third, we are talking about leadership. Leadership that is able to rise up in petty differences. Leadership that is able to incorporate and exude compassion, benevolence. And finally, courage. Especially when we apply models of peace building models like Kutsa, for example, which is internationally accepted and taught. Now, what else can I say? I think I'll have to stop here. Okay, my time is running. Now, last word as I leave the stage. Now, you have set through the last 4 days. You have shown all your courage, your determination, your commitment to come forward and be part of this exercise. Again, I will repeat, it's not me who's going to motivate. We are the ones getting encouraged and motivated by your participation. I hope you have learned. This is just the beginning, by the way. These are long courses. And I'm sure you will continue pursuing these studies. And you will also continue to exert the quality of a peace builder. Okay? And you will not forget what you have learned in this course. So I thank you all once again and for your patient hearing, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samo. There could not have been a better way of saying the last word if Tamo Brojan were not there. So I'm so happy that he was available for us to end these 4 days learning processes by drawing in out from his wide experience around the world. And secondly, let us also appreciate him. He said he has spent his best of his professional life walking through war-torn zones around the world, and now, for the last one, I need your clip, he is retiring in Manipur war context. So for that, we are very grateful and in fact fortunate that he is retiring in Manipur when we are experiencing war here. So he needs a big clap from all of you for making his retirement available to us here to work with us. I'm very hopeful that we should be able to transform the situation that we experience. Now, without losing much time, let me just tell you briefly what unfolds immediately after this. We're going to do a gallery walk. Gallery walk will be led by the 4 facilitators.
leading us from this chair, and then they will take us how the 4 days were spent, what all happened. They will tell us what all happened on each of these, some highlights on that, so that we all have a sense of what actually the participants experienced and what all things were happening in terms of what Tamil Brojan said, self-reflections, right? And introspections and all that. And what are some of the new things they wanted to discover among themselves, within themselves. So that's the gallery walk we're going to do. So the order of walking is, can you start coming? All the four facilitators. You're going to lead us and then take us through the 4 days. And then it will be followed by our executive members. I request from this side. You are starting from there, right? First day is from this side. Okay. So I request Dr. Rajesh to lead our executive members from this side onto the stage. We'll begin with the first day on the side, and then all of you are invited to follow, so that you can also share your experience as to what happened on these days, on the last 3 days. So kindly come up. Yeah, first the executive members, and then participants follow behind. Please come this side. Please come. Dr. Rajesh. Yeah.
First we'll covering some part. Can I have a bit of silence, please? So in the workshop, the goal was to increase participants' capacity to manage conflict and lead effectively in order to create positive social change in their communities. We have used non-formal methodology for our workshop. And if you see the flow of the training, it started with self-understanding, how we reflect on our biases, reflect on the thought processes we have, understanding others. We understand others better, working together, how we can navigate through conflicts when we work with others, amplifying messages and contributing to the change. These are the 4 days agenda. We tried to cover most of it. There were some problems, for example, limited time, the weather, etc. Then we had some group guidelines for the group to make sure it's a safer space and a brave space for the group to learn, to share their personal stories. And we talked about identities, what our identities are and how identities lead to conflict. So these days it's difference in identities and belief systems that cause conflict, because we see ourselves as one identity group. If we start seeing that we hold multiple identities, it's easier to navigate through conflict. Then we talked about definitions. What does it mean? Stereotype, prejudice, discrimination, and what is sexism, racism, how they manifest at personal and systemic level, and who has the power to be the sexist or racist. It needs prejudices and the power to do that, and also the privileges. We then talked about pyramid of hate. Genocide does not happen one day, but it perpetuates at different level and over time. It starts with small biases, those smaller jokes about different communities, those smaller things and acts, and if they are not stopped, it leads to discrimination, bias-motivated violence, and one-day genocide. So it has to be stopped at the bottom layer of the pyramid. A lot of times when we are born, we just follow what is taught to us, but we don't question, who taught me that in the culture of Hinduism, we have to we cannot enter the temple if you are menstruating. Or as a woman, who told me there are certain professions that are not made for me? Questioning the messages that we receive from our friends, family, institutions, cultural places is very important to break the cycle of violence, because the messages we receive here in cycle of socialization are being fed into pyramid of hate. Pyramid of hate, yes. So then we talked about, in a situation of discrimination, what are the different roles we play. If I ask now, how many of you have been aggressors in your life? By show of hands, if you can say. How many of you have been aggressors in your life? Aggressor. All of us have been aggressors. All of us have played different roles in a situation of discrimination. We have played different roles, and it's important to recognize that, and that's what we reflected on. We reflected on our life journeys. It's very important. Where we came from, what have been the accomplishment, what have been the challenges in order to transform. Leadership.
The last part of understanding oneself is leadership. How do we bring the leader and the potential to become a leader from within? And after reflecting upon the role of leaders and to understand that it is a neutral concept, that it can be either positive or negative, and the responsibility that comes with assuming a leadership, we came into our purpose. We reflected on what a purpose is, how important it is to assume a role of leadership, and what we can do, what questions we can do and we can reflect upon to build our own sense of purpose. After having a clarity on what our purpose was, there was time now for understanding others. So in here, in conflict, it's important first to understand what approach do I come from and the other person comes from. Here we have the two differential approaches, adversarial and learning approach. We reflected upon the thoughts that come from each approach. The adversarial, which is assuming a lot of things, assuming that I know what the other person intended, assuming that I am the only person who is right in their position, and assuming that the other person has all of the faults, that only the other person is the one to blame. And then we pass into the listening or learning approach, in which there is a shared responsibility, in which there is also an awareness of the impact of the actions of the other person and of mine as well.
Then we reflected on, when we are having communication, the kind of questions we should ask. They should be open-ended, non-vying, non-leading, and coming to the personal experiences. And they practice asking different questions. And then we talked about communication.
Thanks. So when you speak about the peace building, it's necessary to speak as well the communication, because the communication basically is the support for process and peace process in different conflicts. And talking about the communication in the conflict, what is happening with the makes communication it's a difficult in the peace process. And we shared some research about this. And one research is very interesting is about the Albert Meravian. And Albert Meravian talking about the 100% the communication, only 7% is language, verbal languages. And then body languages is 55%, and then tone, it means the emotions. And a lot of people talking about okay, we can create a peace process and speak, no? Only speak. But what happened behind this speak and instincts and emotions and your body languages? For this reason, it's important talking about the theory of listening, because it's really complicated and difficult listen, no? More when it's talking about in the peace building. And we know about the process in the theory of listening. In this process, we're recognizing the perception is a filtration for you receive the information, and as well when you send and give and share your answers. And in other researchers talking about this perception, or it's a filtration, create an inner soul. And what is the inner soul? Our ideas in the mental, in the emotional, and a physical. But you cannot see this. You only see the behavioral. No, it's only you see and hear. And recognizing this, it's possible you have activated other techniques for listening very well.
Alright, so next we did active listening techniques. These are various techniques like encouraging, eliciting, and so on, which help you to be a better listener. And all these go hand in hand simultaneously. Afterwards, we talked about having difficult conversations. In any conflict situation, there are bound to be some conversations that are difficult, and it's important to choose why you want to have the conversation. And if you choose not to have a conversation, even that inaction, there has to be some purpose behind it. So in order to understand that, we did a risk and reward analysis of having a particular conversation and what it means for yourself, for your relationship, and for the whole organization or the group. Further, we talked about that if you do choose to have the conversation, that also follows certain techniques that can bring about the most healthy result. So, in choosing to engage, we talked about how in the first part, the first option is to stay present, have an open dialogue, use more of a learning approach. The second option is that if you do choose to engage, but it is a very complicated conversation, it is also helpful to have a neutral party such as a mediator. If you choose not to engage, there are also ways to go about that. Either you de-invest in the relationship, you restructure the relationship, or you move away from the situation if that change is impossible to make. Again, if you do prepare to engage, there are certain things you need to keep in mind and be cognizant of. So all these things, if you answer them, it will help you to get a better idea of what your purpose of having the conversation is and what outcome you are looking at. And it will streamline the conversation to a better outcome. Next, we moved on to analyzing conflict. We did a little brainstorming session, and these were the answers. A lot of them we later reflected were in the negative sense. You know, the first place our mind goes to when we hear of conflict is that it is something negative. However, we see conflict as something that is neutral. What makes it positive or negative is how the parties perceive it and how they choose to manage it. That is what makes it positive or negative. Further, there are different types of conflicts and they happen on every level. It goes from something like intrapersonal, as in having a conflict within myself, my two ideas, my two values, to even interstate, as in between.
Then we went into analyzing conflict, and as you mentioned that was one of the models to analyze conflict, but we used a simpler one, which was answering who, what, when, where, why, how the journalists do. Then we did an activity where participants learned what is their go-to conflict style. And we analyzed which conflict style can be used in which situation. And then we talked about negotiation. So what is negotiation? What are the key concepts of negotiation? And then we went into understanding. So for a negotiation to happen, what all needs to be done to prepare? For instance, first one is preparation. You need to have enough information, the conflict analysis needs to happen, and there has to be understanding of position, goals and interests, and then the relationship. Many of them today mentioned that it's not that cookies and Meiteis never had a relationship. They had a very strong relationship. So in a situation of a negotiation, how relationships helps. They practiced through an example, and then we talked about how the first conversation in a negotiation talks about position, what they want, but we need to go to the interest, which is what they need, and talk about it. Triangle of satisfaction. Negotiation is not about words, but it's also about substantive, which is what is the conflict about, what is the outcome. Procedural, how the process was it transparent, was it inclusive, how the process went of negotiation, and the psychological aspect of it. Were the people, their psychological, emotional needs were taken into consideration, and sometimes they even demand for apology. And this is not something that has to be taken care of for one party, but both the parties. We saw an example from Mexico where the negotiation happened. We saw the video and realized what was their triangle of satisfaction. Then we went into the concept 4, which is a leverage. In a negotiation,
leverage is very important. So what leverage they have? So we took an example from South Sudan where women's marched and it was a story where people understood what their leverage was, and as most of them were from Meitei community, they also reflected on what leverage they have if they go for negotiation. Then they practice doing negotiation through a mango tree scenario, and then we learned how negotiation strategies are similar to conflict strategies, and then making impact in the communities. Cycle of liberation. What is my wake-up call? How I am getting ready to create the change? What I am doing to reach out? How I am building community? How I am leading the change, creating the change, and then managing it. And the core has to be very strong to lead community and to bring change. And then this is something we couldn't cover, but this is Pyramid of Alliance, and that's how the workshop ended.
Very much. Very, very well done. Wonderful.
Excellent.
Eye-opening, yeah. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Now, the next activity now we do is I would again request all the executive members to be here on the stage. Now we're going to do certificate and badge distribution to all the participants and also facilitators. Can I have you back again on the stage? All the executive members, please, on stage. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Gautam, please, on the stage. Okay, are you? I'd like to request, yeah, please come. Oja, please come. Please come. Yeah, all of us, all the executive members. Yeah, first I'd like to request our chairman, Senior Advocate Karim Mani, to do the first batch of certificate distribution to
Dr. Yungkhaibam Rajesh Singha.
Dr. Yungkhaibam Rajesh. This certificate is being awarded to Dr. Yungkhaibam for successfully organizing this 4 days workshop here in the university. He is an assistant professor at the Art Sciences Department of the university. So thank you so much, Dr. Rajesh Yungkhaibam. Next.
Soumya Agarwal.
Soumya Agarwal. Soumya Agarwal is CEO, Chief Executive Officer, and also founder of Youth for Peace International Delhi. And she is the lead facilitator of the 4-member team that we have. Wonderful team. Thank you, Soumya, for leading this 4 days learning processes. Next.
Next is Juanita Calderon.
Juanita Calderon is another amazing young lady, dynamic enough to move all of you there, put you on toes. Thank you so much, Juanita, for being with us. We hope you will continue to come and walk together, right? This restaurant. Thank you so much. Next one.
Alexa Tabata.
Alexa Tabata is another amazing human person. She is, we have very short time, but a lot of talents to explore in her. She's a dancer, an artist, and whatnot. But I'm sorry. But we expect you to come back again. So thank you so much for all your energy. The next one is
Manat Dillon.
Manat Dillon is from Delhi. She is a Punjabi young lady, dynamic, and she is here in Manipur for the first time, and she is learning about Manipur, discovering quite a lot of things. Do you like to come back again? Do you like to come back again?
Oh, of course, definitely, especially because of the people, because they're so well.
Wow, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. Next one. Yeah, next. Next in the batch.
First of all, I want to call Ginthodam Rajesh Singha.
Ginthodam Rajesh, please come on the stage. Ginthodam Rajesh, are you there?
Now, thank you so much. Now, next I'd like to invite
And we would like to offer some small gifts to the community. I just also want to thank Dr. Devin, who has been just working tirelessly and supporting this program. And we have a small gift for you, Dr. Devin.
All right, fine, thank you. Now I'd like to request some of our senior leaders to share a few words as to, after having, heard what all happened in the last four days and how our participants have also actively learned something. Okay. All right. I'll do that. But one or two words at least from Ojak Hajan Mani first.
I would like to say a few words. I would like to wish and express gratitude towards the four madam who are coming from outside the state of Manipur. They are Soumya Agarwal, who is the co-founder and the Chief Executive Officer of the Youth for International, empowering youth to conflict transformation, supporting rehabilitation works, etc. And I would like to express my gratitude towards Jonita Calderon, who is a dynamic educator. Thank you. And thirdly, Alexa Teboda, who is a communicator for change. Also, thank you. And the last but not the least, Manat Dillon, a young peace builder for an experience of about 4 years, for your coming here and to share your loud thinking and to share your experience before the learners and the trainers. So I would like to express my gratitude on behalf of our organization TARAGI CHEISHU and on behalf of the participants. And with these few words, we have learned many things. Even today itself, I have seen all these write-ups. I have requested to the chief facilitator to available some of these write-ups in the form of a booklet, or in the meantime, I would like to ask our coordinator, Mr. Devan, about these things. It is very much practicable for me also, being a senior citizen and being a chairman of the TARAGI CHEISHU. And today itself, I will talk to the TV also with these things. So I would like to get a copy of this if there are any writer. So friends, for the participants, I may be allowed to speak in Manipuri also with your kind permission. Yang nungai, masigi numit mari di tawbase. Yang kanara maru khali. Maram desigumba peace facilitator oiba aduga peace tawbase. Yang pambami mo oiba aise. I have been serving for the last 45 years, 46 years. By ukileu ibutaki na chaini putaruki tawdana apani. Maru in a state actor and state actor doesn't worry sanu political dialogue too. I did the who Seloga and Harpo Bauyaurami in China in 2010-11. Adubu, some of them are the Tortana, Hoji, Sovereign, Tandana, Kotana, Yavaya, the Bonamani, Amayaure, Taimam, Suyong, Navahona, Mali, Adana Sikumba, later Sida, when a parent whatever lecture said, Masigi writer Sing Ubakanda. I am very much, I'm very young interested or Ibapotama. mana lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Asi aina orai da kana gada ba aduga practice da kana gada ba being a sena citizen amo ina sigum ba study to ga leibanina asi amo le yang kana ba pot amo oi maramaduna you participants no in a 4 days sida aina khalibis maina moigi madam marisi mapan lagi siaure Colombia lagi siaure India lagi siaure aduna sigi moigi wakalon moigi loud thinking do moigi loud thinking aduga moigi experience moina phangbu mayam do nokoi da auto eraga adugi mayam aduna aikoi na thabuk oina samna harbida aikoi gi conflict ase masida sina conflict ase to bakanda some sort of violence yawgana ko whether arm or unarmed conflict ai ba mukna bahai se violence yawgana ba adugun bagi violence kaunana ba hona ba pi ba energy do matu shanti wan puruk na barom da hona ba adugi transformation do na ba to my understanding habidi adun ba conflict transformation do conflict si da sangi ba energy mayam do kulai legi ni mi hat ni adu tawgana yekna ba adu tawgana na thagari ba brain mayam do madugi energy mayam do madu peace thamna na barom do othok pa do na ba transforming se to my understanding, to my poor understanding, adu mai na khale aduna mayam punamang tongan ba leiba organization mayam digi represent tauba aduga khoi workshop sigi damta di khoi kano haitare satra haitare ko student haitare adu moi marino ojagi role da toraga moina whatever moina khanba moina experience moina thengna ba mayam da moi aron bakanja ba law thinking on puthopado aduga share to si yam ngai aduga bisalakada aikoi gi taragi cheishu-na adu mi hawgi ba punamaku thagachari adu aikoi gi maraktegi aikoi moi mari budi tongan na thagakare aikoi gi maraktegi su organizing committee aikoi co-chairman arkini maina chair to bani organizing committee kai deverna secretary ni adigi rajesh adigi da kai secretary general ano all in all ni mayam sigi marakta aikoi Gaudian Thanjan retired IPS mahat ache kai treasurer ni honorary treasurer ni magi experience lai bapot punam adu aikoina share to ga aikoina mongondegi adum ba kana ba mayam lawaga maduna through this taragi cheishu achide thamyere ga kana mayam da sandungna mohona ga achomba contributor amo oi adigi lai ba ko ke secretary sing adigi Pradeep Hamlebam journalist one of the most journalists in the state of Manipur magi contribution mayam noni koi machine ma taro na haji lo ra ko koi lai bi daktari bol ni maru ba dinamani rajesh adigi te ko lai bi mayam puna magase asina mateng pambiba maru ena evolving through the vice chancellor to thagani koi na mateng tibedigi with your kind support with your kind assistance Manipur University authority na tawna sim mama mari ni tawna bo hono basida mateng pambigi da mutu thagachari aduna I once again thank you all of the participants and the facilitators. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Now, let us listen to some voices from the participants. So, we expected two women, young women and two men to speak up. Who will start first?
Good evening, one and all present here. My name is Kundrapam Narsana Devi, and this past 4 days have been really fruitful and enlightening for me. It really gave an self-introspection of myself. We learned that we all have little biases in ourselves, even though it's for a little bit. So we all need to first resolve the biases within ourselves first in order to do anything further with other people. And during the course, I learned a lot about myself, and I'm a totally different person now. I feel a lot better. I feel a lot stronger. From the river of life that we practice, I found that I have been through a lot in my life, and I've stood up every time I fail. And if I can stand up many a times, then why not us all? And I believe not only me, each one of us must have been a different person from the first day. Yeah, it has been a really great experience. Thank you.
Before, when this conflict started, excuse me, it got worse and worse, and I thought, how can we resolve this? Like the other senior people, they might be discussing about resolving this issue, but for us, for the youngsters, we were thinking like, how can we resolve this? But by joining this workshop, it gave us a lot of ideas, different types of ways in which we can resolve a conflict which is getting worse and worse. And now we think that by thinking together, we can resolve this issue some way or the another. And I thank you, I thank the organizers, and I thank our facilitators. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts that you have been teaching us with your heart and soul, and we wish that we can continue this again in another time. And that's all. That's all.
Good evening, everyone present here. I am Hema Maishwarya Devi. Yeah, first of all, thank you, organizer team, for organizing such a wonderful workshop during this conflict that was needed in this time. Yeah, after completing this session, I got a chance to know what is purpose for my life, and as an individual, what can I do during this conflict, and how can I approach to the other group who are having conflict with our group, and how can I bring solution, and I can believe myself now that I can do something for the society. Get some experience from this workshop. That's all. Thank you.
Good evening, respected teachers, my dear friends. First of all, myself, Santirani Thokson. Right now, I'm pursuing my PhD in biochemistry department. Being a science background, people might be thinking that we don't think much about the politics, we don't think about the social issues, but we are very much interested about the present crisis also. So I also want to do something from my side for the betterment of this issue to bring change. So this program organized by the TARAGI CHEISHU, I am very fortunate to be part of this program, and for the last 4 days I can learn some idea, and today also from the closing ceremony I can learn 2 points from our respected Sir Borzen. Sir said introspection. So everybody needs to know what is introspection. So today also, from today onward, I will apply myself the introspection and the kucha. From sir, I came to know this word also. And not only that, from the respected 4 of the facilitator, they were giving so much effort from their side from the last 4 days. And even after having so much since morning 9 a.m. till 4-5, we had exhaustive interaction. But in between the program, in between the interaction, after the lunch, even if we are having so much schedule, they try to do different kind of exercises like passing the ball, so that we can read our mind, we can do some concentrated work also. So I think for the change of the society to resolve a conflict, everything we can start to change ourselves from within. So thank you for that, for this opportunity, and thank you so much everyone for giving me the opportunity to say something about this workshop program that I have experienced. Thank you so much once again.
You sum up the whole workshop so well. Peace begins with me, right? Through introspection and reflection. Anybody one last volunteer who would like to express?
Good morning, good evening, everyone. I would like to share some experience regarding this workshop that is organized by the TARAGI CHEISHU with Manipur University and the Youth for Peace, New Delhi. So since the beginning of this workshop, I was observing how it is going on and how it is going to be. So at the first moment, we are introducing to each of us to others and describing about how our name was given to us, and so from that onwards we have realized that each of us have a unique character, a unique powerful that can solve some conflict from that situation, as we are all unique. And this workshop is not only about conflict, as I say, because in order to be fulfilled and in order to get this kind of knowledge, the facilitators have gone through different kind of techniques, and I will consider this as a kind of systematic, that a kind of a great technique that from the beginning of this workshop, we have kept a guideline that is agreed by all of us. So from the guidelines, I came to know that the facilitators cleverly, I said cleverly, okay, the facilitators cleverly keep a guideline because not to have a conflict in between these workshops. So that is one kind of solution for a conflict, I think. And after that, as all the four facilitators already said about these things, have already explained so, and three of our colleagues already explained so, I have nothing, no more to say. So thank you, TARAGI CHEISHU, and thank you facilitators for, and thank you Manipur University for giving us such an opportunity to know better of ourselves and giving a chance to learn something, to solve a conflict, and to this research a conflict that will be better for the Manipur or for the world in keeping the world peace. Thank you.
Inspiring. One thing that he learned is the uniqueness of each one of us, that we cannot be bound by a single law. There is no uniform code. we have to assert our identity, uniqueness, to contribute to the larger society, particularly in building peace. Now, I'll go over to the stage to hear a few last remarks from the chairman, organizing committee of this workshop first, and then I'll pass it to the General Secretary of TARAGI CHEISHU, and then a few others who would like to say the last word. Yeah.
A very good evening. The lead felicitator, Soumya, the others, Vanita, Lexa, and Manmat, my colleagues from TARAGI CHEISHU, and all the participants in this training program. It is a pleasure to learn that this 4 days, though it has been hectic, has important certain knowledge, skill to our participants by the 4 felicitators. When we devised this program, when we decided to conduct, it is not focused on the present crisis. Manipur has got more than 36, 37 communities, each having their own aspirations. Some of the communities are extremely small, with a population about 1,000 odd. And conflicts are bound to arise when you have so many communities, because communities are one aspect of human character which identify oneself and lead to conflict with other communities. If we look back into the history of not only of Manipur, of India, but all around the globe, is basically a fight between different communities. If we look into the history of Eurasia, because this is the history we have been taught. We have never learned the history of Latin America or of North America. Well, we have learned about Eurasia, the European history and the Indian history. It's basically a conflict between the other side will paint the other as devil, and they are the good ones. The Mongols, people talk about Genghis Khan as one of the worst dictators, but he has done lots of good things to humanity. Similarly, at Timor Lane, how he has developed Samarkand, how he has developed the market crossing across the huge Gobi deserts, the Altai Range between China and Europe. That has never been put across properly. So when we learn the history of India, we were taught that Timor is a great, he massacres people. There are stories about him making pyramids of human heads, 20,000 slaughtered and all. And history is all about killing. We hardly talk about peace. And it's only in the, see, our religious leaders talk about peace, whether it's Jesus Christ, or whether it's Gautam Buddha, or in the 20th century, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela. They talk about peace, and very few talk about peace. And those who propound peace, or those who talk about peace, except for a very few leaders, people forget. And they don't find a place in the history, in the pages of history. I do hope that our participants will be, must have picked up some basic ideas about peace building and how to interact with the opposite party. And in fact, in Manipur also there are groups which are in peace talks with the government of India, and they will be needing such type of knowledge so that they can negotiate well with the government of India. And we are very glad that very, very active youth leaders participate in this program, because they are the one who will be the mover and changers in bringing peace, and not people like us. Because in my column and in Pradeep's column, we have been talking about negotiation, we have been talking about peace, but there is hardly anybody who is willing to listen. Because ultimately, you can't, I used to refer, you can't kill the 6.5 lakhs cookie to settle the present crisis, or the cookies can kill 14 lakhs by day. It's impossible at this 21st century. So ultimately, a negotiated settlement has to come about, and that has to be through negotiation. And negotiation, if one has to undertake a negotiation, one has to understand yourself, one has to understand your opponent, and then you can negotiate. With lack of information, without understanding your opponents, you will not succeed in any negotiation. Bimol used to refer to a very critical word, the use of conflict and crisis, which led to the failure of the Agra summit between India and Pakistan. So, and I have been along with a trade delegation in Yangon with Myanmar, and the way the Myanmar officials and the ministry were particular about the use of a particular English word. And they look into their English to Myanmar dictionary to find out whether India will reinterpret to its advantage any words which was used in the trade treaty. So these are the precautions other countries take, and we should also be familiar with what happens when we try to deal with an opponent. so that, because ultimately understanding has to come by reasoning, applying rationality. Brute force just cannot decide. And in particular, I am extremely happy because two facilitators have come from Colombia, because Colombia, we have never heard about peace initiative. We have heard only about the Medellin cartel. That is the narratives which we have been given about the different countries of the world. And we talk about China in a very negative sense. Even this Israel-Palestine conflict, we have been fed one narrative. Even in the present conflict and crisis in Manipur, the social media is agog with alternative narratives which are far away from the truth, but which are making those who are not here, but who have been outside the state or outside the country, forming their own ideas of what is happening. And that is based on false narratives. If you base on the false premises, then you can't build up. So what we need to do is to understand the crisis so that we can go ahead. And I think this 4-day program will help our youth leaders to understand what one should do and one should realize. And as Brother said, it is the moral courage which is very important, because now the tendency for giving more power to the hypocrites is the tendency. That happens in any conflict. It is basically the fundamentalists who decide, but ultimately they will go down. And if you look into history, so the rise of the Caliphate movement and all, ultimately they go, and it's a cycle. And I do hope that our youth leaders have understood some basic about it. And if the university had conducted this course, I think you would have earned 1 credit, because I think around 20 hours that is spent. If you spend 16 hours, you earn 1 credit. And thank you very much to the members from the Youth for Peace International who has come all the way to interact with it. And I do hope that you take good memories, even though Manipur is in turmoil, you take back home good memories of your short visit to Manipur. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Let me also acknowledge the kind presence of Mr. Dev Datta, who is the Director of Agriculture Department, Horticulture Department, and he has been one person who have decided to invest in peace. So this is a great thing for us. We have been inviting into violence. Now here we have a person who is ready to generously invest for peace, and he has been one person who have provided his resources for this workshop to run successfully. Thank you so much, Mr. Datta. Now, since the sun is setting and we are running behind time, I'd like to request Ogai Ball to say final few words so that we can have a group word.
Thank you, Oswald David. Respected dignitaries on the dais, and respected facilitators of this training program, esteemed participants, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm good afternoon, everyone. Well, we have just got this 4 days workshop on youth leadership, especially on the topic peace building and the conflict transformation. It's a very much of the contemporary relevant topic for the youngsters, especially the students, leaders, to sensitize in this trouble-torn state. On behalf of the organizing team, as well as from the Manipur University, would like to express profound gratitude and thankfulness for giving such kind of a very, very important session for the young leaders in our state. All of us are quite aware about the conflicts and conflicts of various types. We have already seen. I am very much fascinated to see the various models and probably the kind of role plays and experience of learning these trainees might have been experiencing. It's truly a transformative kind of a session. I hope all of you have experienced from the feedback you have given. It's very true that we are experiencing so much of conflict starting from the individuals, intrapersonal, interpersonal, intergroup, intragroup, interdepartmental, intradepartmental, then to intra-organizational and inter-organizational, then going to the states or the nation, intranation, international, and international. So that's why there are various levels of conflicts we are experiencing, and I hope you people might have got yourself transformed to be a messenger of conflict resolution or peace building activities. And also I am a learner of management, that's why I am very much fascinated to see this kind of a model of conflict resolution strategies. That is the Thomas Gilman's strategy, where you are just trying to have all sort of a collaborating of the things, but sometimes it may not be feasible. That's why you can have a little bit of compromise. On that line you can think about, but many a times people are focusing more on the competition and or otherwise the accommodation. So that's why by now you have already got it, all these inputs. For me, I just would like to share one or 2 points. In fact, you can also think about introspection as well as you can also sit with about your emotional intelligence. That way, you can also sit with, have you been in his or her position, what you will say or what you will do. So that means trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the other. That also will be very much helpful in resolving any of the conflicting situations. So in any of the developmental process, without peace, development cannot be possible. We love to see our state a developed state. We love to see our state having a vibrant economy and everybody residing in this part of the country. At least we should make this place a better place to live in. And for that matter, young minds had already started propagating this kind of a venture. I definitely love to sit with this course content. If it is possible, at least for 2 credits, we can think of introducing this peace building and the conflict transformation as one of the skill areas in the skill enhancement papers in the undergraduate and postgraduate level. So happiness is also another kind of a paper coming up, and why not? Peace building and conflict transformation could be another paper. So that's why we shall work together on that line, and every single individual studying in Manipur University should have an opportunity to learn how we can engage ourselves to work for the peace building activities, and every student can work as a messenger for that matter. And that's why let's pull our heads together and let's work on that line, and hopefully we may be able to contribute something. And in fact, Manipur University is one of the best center for learning in higher education, and we are to produce so many change makers. And that's why you students, young minds, you are the change agents of the society. And today you have already taken up a good change to happen. The 1,000 miles we travel with one single step first. And you have started moving one very good single step in the right direction. I wish Almighty will provide you the kind of wisdom, strength, caliber, and energy and courage to do something for the betterment of our society. May God bless you with this work. I'm very much thankful to all the organizing team for giving this opportunity in our Manipur University premises. Thank you everyone.
I'd like to request Professor Dakeshwar, who is the General Secretary of TARAGI CHEISHU, to say his few words and close this program, 4 days program.
I think everyone is tired and it's better to close right away. You see, today I think my dream is coming true. We started TARAGI CHEISHU, only 8 of us, some 1 year back. By around this time we started TARAGI CHEISHU formation with one vision that everyone in Manipur can be united in a platform. So in the beginning, everyone was very much skeptical about that. They thought that no, it's not possible. So we started discussing with so many people. We met so many organizations, starting from those who are in the forefronts, then even the underground organizations. And we went from pillar to post to consult each and every one of these organizations and people. Then we realized that it is a very difficult task. But for us, we have taken that difficult task as a challenge, and we thought, and we still feel that impossible is present only in the dictionary of the fools. So we thought that we can do it, and still now I think that it is doable, and we have started to combine and coordinate all the civil society organizations in Manipur. Actually, we feel ourselves to be just like a thread in a garland, or so just like water which can be spread everywhere and unite everyone. So we started from the doctors and engineers and many different professions who were just staying as a spectator or a just observer in such a situation, and we carried them forward. And amongst us nowadays we are having everyone you can see right in front of me is a senior journalist of Manipur, and next to him is the director of the horticulture, and behind me you can see the professor of the university, then the president of the Thangta Association in Manipur. He has been instrumental in spreading our indigenous martial arts to more than 30 countries in the world. So all these people come together, and we know that one day the whole societies of Manipur can come together and live peacefully, and our plan is to move forward and make Manipur one of the most developed states in India by 2050 is our target. And you who are staying here, who have started this journey with us, you are the seeds that we are sowing, and we know that 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down, you will be those trees which will be growing with branches spread in different directions, and you will make our state a very developed state. With this, we have started this program, and it's just the first step. And we are very much happy that the first step is successful, and from now onwards, we'll be looking further ahead. We are looking on different directions, like how to improve the economy of the rural areas in Manipur. We are working on that too. And we are taking everyone in along with us. So Taragi CHEISHU means, Tara means Kwai Tara in Manipuri, means people. And CHEISHU means support. So we are the support of the people. And people means everyone. So there is no discrimination, nothing in our TARAGI CHEISHU. Everyone is included, and you have started to be part of us. So we have presented you with a messenger of peace and inscribed as TARAGI CHEISHU. From now onwards, you are the most important persons yourself. You are leaders. From now onwards, you will lead our people forward. With these few words and a hope, and also a congratulation and a thankful message to all the facilitators who have come down a long way to help us out, and for you who have given some trust and faith in TARAGI CHEISHU to come here and join this course. Thank you very much. With these few words, I want to conclude. Thank you everyone.
Peace is! Peace is! That's great, thank you.